Maybe he played the phone game and it's actually real.
That would be terrible and amazing.
Oh my god.
Either that or he's sitting there listening to us and trying to decide if he actually wants to talk to us.
Like, it's not too late to ghost us. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm out of here.
Trying to get everything geared up, buddy.
Oh, there he is.
Hello.
How are you guys? Who am I talking to?
Really good. Kimberly here, and then Chris,
Hello.
then Carlos.
Hello.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Very well. And everybody, Patrick Johnson. This is the right one, too.
Excellent.
Why? Did you guys have a mix-up with somebody else?
No, I was doing research, and there's so many Patrick Johnsons.
I know, that's awesome. That's my anonymity. That's how I keep from having crazy privacy issues. Because it's like try to find me. It's like almost impossible. They're just general public privacy. Everybody always talks about privacy. It's like at my gym alone, there's like 15 different Patrick Johnsons.
Wow, perfect.
And I was like, so, try to pin anything on me, man. I got 15 at the gym alone I can point to.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So, okay.
So, what you guys want to talk about?
We want to hear everything. How did it happen? How did you end up making movies?
Well, how did I end up making movies? I was an art major in college. While I was in college, a buddy of mine from my Spanish class one weekend pulled up to me in a van, a big white panel van, and said, "Hey, do you want to make $50?" And I was like, maybe.
Right.
And it depends. And he's like, "Hey, yeah." So he had borrowed a bunch of equipment. He'd worked at a radio station, and people would call up and ask for DJs to do parties. And he asked his boss, "What do I tell them?" And they said, "Well, here's a list of DJs you can send them to." And he was kind of entrepreneurial, so he decided that he was going to take some of the jobs himself. So he rented a bunch of equipment, and then he needed help moving the equipment around because he didn't realize how heavy it was going to be. He'd never done anything like this before. And he got a bunch of, music and stuff from the radio station. So assuming that the people that would call a radio station looking for a DJ would want the same type of music that they played. So I felt like he was pretty safe. And so I got in working with him on that job. And then we started doing just mobile DJing while we were in college. And that did really well. And then, but it's like fraternity sorority party. So it doesn't last that long. It's only a couple of times a year that you can actually do it and make money. So we contracted with a local club to do stuff in their parking lot. And they said, "Yeah, that'd be great. We'll split the door." And it turned out to be extremely popular. Then they quickly decided they didn't want to split the door anymore and just wanted to pay us like a flat fee. So we, out of pride, quit and then went and opened our own club. This is going to get to filmmaking soon, trust me. So then from there, you're just having to deal with all these crazy issues trying to do all this stuff. And we're trying to do it on the cheap. We don't have the budget to try to open our own clubs. We had to find a building that was almost ready. My friend's dad was in construction. So we built a bunch of stuff. We built a DJ booth and we did all the stuff that we could. And once we got the club open, we started using some of the off nights. We would bring in bands and have live music. And some friends of mine started in there doing live music, and they actually started getting really popular. And we decided that they needed to make a music video. And we had a camera, so that was sort of my first attempt at trying to take, because I was in the art side of everything, and they were like, "Well, you can make a music video." And it seemed like it'd be pretty easy, so we did it. It was horrendous. And
what time frame is this? Like what year?
This was back. So this was probably like in 1991.
Oh, okay.
So, and then I was thinking, "Oh yeah, this is going to go on MTV tomorrow." Like, yeah, this is brilliant. And it was, edited by banging back and forth between the two VCRs. And so it was, and it was just abstract and painful. We had like a bonfire, a bunch of driving shots, telephone poles, trees going by, REM looking shit.
Yeah.
From that time period.
Was this on video?
Yeah, it was VHS, man.
Awesome.
It was all washed out, and then it's banged back and forth between two tapes that had been recorded over probably 1,000 times.
Oh no.
It was like TV episodes. So it was really bad. But it did show you that like it was fun, and it seemed like something that was a continuation of the art that I was doing, and so eventually I graduated, and the world and I think so it was about 92. Of course, we were always in a recession, it seems like, so there was really not a lot of work, but the band was on the road. So they said, hey man, why don't you come on the road with us and do the video stuff? And we're going to do and so we had like a big projector. We would do live projection of the band behind them, images and all these cool, trippy visual effects, which was kind of popular at that time. And, so once I got into that, I started doing a lot more research into cutting between the stuff. And then that kind of led me to doing visual effects type stuff. And that seemed like an even bigger extension of, so you've got just regular art that you're doing. And now I'm doing art, but it's moving and it's much more vibrant, and you get to do it with people and it's fun. And that lasted for a little while. And then I got a job in Dallas. So this was up in Oklahoma. This was at Oklahoma State. Got a job in Dallas working for a television series doing visual effects, because I saw an ad that they were looking for somebody to do visual effects. And since I had done some visual effects for the shitty music videos, I thought that qualifies me.
Perfect.
I'd read some magazine articles. That seemed like I could do it. Mostly it was Photoshop stuff. So I went and told them that I'd done a bunch of stuff, convinced them to hire me, got on board, and there they were in production. So we were shooting one episode a week, and they were shooting it on film. And I was able to have access to all the crew and the people, especially during lunchtime. And you could also go down to the set. You could watch. So it was kind of like a school in a way. And people love to talk about themselves. So if you go and ask somebody, so how does that work? What do you do? Oh, I'm a sound guy. And then they'll tell you all of how that works. Oh, the camera guy, well, why do you do that? How is this? And I would work with the directors and the DP a lot because of the visual effects. So I could ask a lot of questions and kind of figure out lighting and talk to lighting people. And at first it seemed really overwhelming, but eventually you start to kind of go, okay, I get this. This isn't that bad. I mean, it's just, they have a lot of money, but I can see how it's done. And then of course, on any production, there's always, half the crew's on their own, trying to make their own movies at home. They're all, want to be filmmakers. So I'd met up with some of those guys, and then they had a much more like hands-on approach to how you could do stuff. And I'd look at some of their projects and think, okay, this is all doable. And so that kind of got me excited about it. But that brought me down to the Dallas area. And then I didn't realize that like shows like that, they don't just go on forever. They only go for a certain short amount of time. And then, so they get picked up. So then I remember when I first came down here, they were like, oh, we hope we get picked up again. I was like, wait, what? What? I just signed a lease for an apartment. We hope we get picked up. And, but luckily it did. And they went 2 seasons.
Oh, good.
And so things went pretty well. I thought I got a pretty good education of stuff. And then once it shut down, I went to work for a teaching thing, but it was like a technical college. And they were looking for somebody to teach design and art and stuff because there was no other film work. So I started doing that. And while I was there, I found a job working for an internet startup. And that internet startup ended up becoming Match.com.
Oh.
And
that's cool.
Wow.
When they sold it, they everybody got bonus. And so I used that money to buy a digital camera. And then once the company sold, all the people that were there, legacy, it was just the writing's on the wall. They're going to let everybody go and bring in all new people.
Right.
So since I had an office and I had lots of free time, I just started working on scripts, and then I would use my office for casting calls. Like I'd have people, so people were like, who are all these people coming to your office like during the day? And there were people coming in to do readings. So it gave me an air of legitimacy. I also had access to a conference room for table reads. So I wrote this really bad script about a group of guys who rob a bank using a robot. So it was more like a remote control type of operation. And they stole one of those handicap carts from the grocery store with the motor and built that as the chassis. And
That's great.
They used it with remote controls to send it into a bank with a fake grenade on it to tell the teller to put the money in a box on it, and then they were going to drive it out, and then they drove it into the back of a U-Haul, and then we're going to take off, and it was going to be this perfect thing.
That's awesome.
But things went wrong. The teller didn't put the money in there, pretended that they did, reported the money was gone, so they ended up with nothing. And bad guys after them, typical kind of first film, over ambitious, way too many things going, trying to do everything. And I thought I could do all the visual effects because, that was kind of my area. And so I thought this will take it up a notch and make it good. And I found this theater in my neighborhood that was a $1 movie. So I started doing the math, and I thought, I wonder how much it would cost just to rent it out, because if it's $1, I thought, how much could they possibly make, like on a Tuesday? There's probably like 8 people in there. Mm. So I went and did a deal with them and said, hey, can I screen my movie here? And I'll let you guys sell tickets, like $1 or whatever. And I could put my movie in. And then I just went out and just to all the industry places, to all these, anybody and everybody. I went to, the used movie places where you trade in movies, like Movie Trading Company. There's a couple of local places here that, did a lot of cult movies and stuff. They let me put posters up and just so I got about 200 people to show up to that first screening.
That's awesome.
And it was the week after 9/11.
Oh,
good.
Yeah, and I was like, everyone's like, yeah, you should cancel. And I thought, you know what? Then the terrorists win. So
just go for it. Just go for it.
Yeah. And I think it was good because in a way, I think people were just ready for something kind of stupid and funny and just completely off the rails, and nothing. It didn't touch on anything that was going on in our world. So, I got a lot of positive feedback. And, as an artist, if you just give them a little bit of positive feedback, they think they're geniuses. Mm-hmm. And we're going to take over, yeah, I'm the next Scorsese. Look out, people.
That's right. Going to Hollywood. Awesome.
Yeah. And that was sort of it. And then that put me, I wrote a screenplay after that I really put some time and effort into, because while I was there, this is kind of weird. That same theater, they showed Mexican movies. And there was a guy, this Mexican guy who had started a bunch of it was like Tex-Mex videos. So he had like a bunch of video rental places that specialized in the Mexican market. And I think they would shoot the films down in Mexico really cheap. And then they would, I guess they had some in Mexico, but then also along the border areas and in areas that had a high Hispanic audience, they would also put the stores. And so but all they had in there were these Mexican films that nobody's ever heard of except in that market. And they usually also had a band, one of the Mexican bands that was doing really well, usually like the Panthers or something like that. And there was 6 or 7 dudes in it. So those guys would be on the poster along with some action elements and stuff. And apparently he was doing pretty good. So he wanted to get into the English language films. And he had one of his films showing at that same theater. He had asked the guy that ran the theater who, if he knew anybody who could do an English language film for him. And he said, well, actually, this kid just came in here and showed a film that he had made. You should talk to him. So his wife called me because he couldn't speak English and set up a meeting. So I went over to this area of town that's predominantly Hispanic and found this little strip mall, and in that strip mall was the little Tex-Mex video place. I went in there. They led me behind the counter through a door into a windowless office where a guy wearing a lot of gold and a big cowboy hat was sitting behind a desk, and his wife was there to interpret, and they wanted me to make a film for them. And he was going to give me like $500,000. And I was like, oh my God, this is it, man.
Wow.
I've made it. And then my friends were like, I don't know, man. That seems like if he, like, what if that movie fails? I don't think he's going to take it. Like, he might take it personal. And I'm thinking, this is never going to fail. This is going to be huge. It's a huge success. And so I wrote a script for that. And then it just kind of fell apart, as most things do. And I could, it was hard to keep getting a hold of him, and missing meetings and one thing and another. So I entered the script into a screenplay contest that was local, that they were looking for some projects. And once I did that, I met some of the people that were involved in that project, and they didn't pick my script, but it was, more relationships. And out of that relationship, I, found other filmmakers that were in the market also trying to do what I was doing. So that was, fun and encouraging. And then I found an ad that there was one of the colleges had a producer coming into town, and that you could, for like $200, you could go meet with them. And it was like a course, and it was limited to the number. And it was going to be like 2 days where you just got to hang out with him and ask questions, and he was going to talk and teach all this stuff. So I went and did it, and it was pretty eye-opening. But the main thing he kept saying is, like, if you want to start out, maybe start out doing a documentary, because you can get a lot of people to participate. You can get sometimes pretty big names. Documentaries always have a place, and you can do them a little cheaper than a full feature. Plus, you don't need as many people, and you can take your time. You don't have to do it in a long production, going through the whole thing. So I started a documentary on DJs, music DJs that turned producer. So I thought that would be good. And there was a thing called the 303 Roland bassline machine that they created a lot of the sounds that are still in the music today. And so I tracked down the guys who first used it in a song, and they created a sound called Acid House. And from that, all these other different things kind of exploded. And so I went over to England, did some interviews, New York, built up kind of a little project, probably maybe 45 minutes worth of really good material. And the partner that I had on it started getting flaky, disappeared for long periods of time. You couldn't get hold of him. Then he had a bunch of the footage, and I couldn't get hold of him to get the footage to edit it, that kind of thing. So I was thinking, okay, this thing's on hold. But because people had heard and saw some of the stuff from it, I got a call from one of the guys I met through the screenplay contest, and he had a person who was looking to do a documentary on the UFC and wanted to know if I wanted to direct it. And I was like, sure, that sounds amazing. So I started working on that. And while I was doing that, one of the other cameramen that was there was telling me that he had released a film, that he'd made a film and released it. And I was like, and you could rent it. I was like, oh my God, what? How did that go? That's crazy. And he was terrible. Like, we called him Half Head Fred, because he would normally like cut off people's heads when he was filming them. Like,
Oh my God.
So I was thinking, holy shit, if Half Head Fred can make a movie, like, I think we should. So my buddy that was on the project with me, we went down to Blockbuster Video and started looking at all the movies, and the really low budget ones, and renting them and watching. We're like, dude, we could totally do this. And at that time, the DVX 100 had just come out, which really was a game changer because it filmed 24 frames style, so it made it look like film.
Yeah.
So, because two of the big things when I got started that everybody takes, for granted now was depth of field. Our goal, trying to make things have that soft bokeh background where you just couldn't do with most of those digital cameras back then. Everything was in focus. It was really hard. So you had to do all kinds of tricks like zoom in and stand, go back to try to get the framing and low light and everything you could do to try to create that cinematic look. And then obviously the 24 frame thing really made a difference. So that it didn't just look like home video.
Yeah.
So we got that camera for we convinced the lady that was running the documentary to buy those cameras for the documentary. So now we had access to the camera, and then we started working on our own script. We were like, okay, let's write a horror script. And so we said, okay, we're probably not going to have any money. So he said, well, my grandparents have a farm that has an old house on it that nobody's been in since the early 70s. That I think like his great aunt or an uncle lived there. The uncle died on the front porch of a heart attack, and the aunt never went back in the house after that day. And so the house had just sat there decaying over the years with nobody ever going in. I was like, well, that sounds like a great horror film house. And we went out to the farm and took a look at it, and they even had his grandparents used the barn to hold a big travel trailer that they'd go to lakes and stuff with. So we actually had a trailer we could stay in, and we had that house. So I thought, well, what else? I would like to do something cool, but like maybe a vampire movie would be neat, but we can't afford any of the prosthetics, and I don't know how we're going to do this. It'd be way too expensive. So I thought, well, what if if the idea was that it's a vampire movie in the sense that the people think they're vampires because they took a party drug that made them crazy, and they thought they needed to drink blood, and that when the drug wears off, they'll be back to normal, which will give them sort of an immortality, because if your friend is trying to kill you, but once the drug wears off, they'll be your friend again, you're going to be less likely to just kill them. You're going to mostly try to just get away from them or subdue them in some way. Then the other angle was nobody knew who took the drug. So you would have that whole mystery of like, are they, going to try to kill me, or did they not take the drug? So basically it revolved around like a big party that they were going to have, a big Halloween party they were going to have out at this farm. And a bunch of people took the drug and some didn't. And then the ones who did started killing off the people who didn't. And then there was sort of a whole, melee. And a lot of people going, I swear I didn't take the drug. Let me in, help me. And then they would let him in, and then they would attack him and that kind of stuff.
That sounds great.
So, and my goal was like, I was like, blood, just blood everywhere. There got to be lots and lots of blood. It's like, because if I know anything, it's like people are going to expect the blood.
Right.
And I was like, but and if you can't really do it to a certain level, I was like, we might as well just be extreme with the blood. And so we got those Hudson sprayers, that you pump up and spray stuff around we just filled those with blood, ran the tubes up people's necks, and then we just pump it up. And as soon as the person would bite their neck or bite them, I would just start spraying. And then I was like, and I told everybody, I was like, look, when in doubt, go for more.
That's right.
Because once that blood starts squirting, we're committed. And if there's not enough blood, we've ruined the take, and we can't go back because we don't have the wardrobe. We can't keep replacing the wardrobe. So we're only going to get one shot at it. So it's got to be overwhelming with blood. And so that's what we did. It was, so we were out in kind of East Texas in some small town out at night, because we were shooting overnights, and we needed one scene where we needed a car to get attacked. And I said, look, man, half the people in this goddamn town have a car in their front yard. It's just rotting. I'm like, I'm sure we could borrow one. Like, let us, let us smash that car up and get blood in it. So one of the producers we had, she went out and she had scored a deal with Golden Corral that they would give us all their food at the end of the night that they didn't serve because, it's a buffet style. So we could have, and that's what we would eat because we were working nights. So that we had free food. She'd go down there, pick up all these big trays of food. So while she was there, some guy was asking her what she was doing with taking the food. Like, did she work for a homeless shelter or something? And she said, no, it's a film production. And
same difference.
Yeah, pretty close. And then she got to talking to him, and he said he had a car that we could use. So on the night in question, we go out and she's like, oh, it's around here someplace. It was daytime when I saw it before. And, now it's, pitch black, dirt roads, no lights. So she's like, okay, this is it. We found it. So we set up our lights. We got a generator. It's like 2:30 in the morning. We've got this car, a bunch of kids wearing costumes and they get attacked in this car. And then we're trying to smash the window out, but it had tint on the windows. We couldn't get the window to break. So we had like 50 takes of just trying to hit it with everything we could find. And we kept increasing the size of what we were hitting it with, trying to see if we could smash it. And, and I'm thinking, what happens when it does smash? Like, I don't want to get the actors, hurt with the glass flying. And there was people screaming, they're dying and they're screaming, no, help. And, all this craziness. And so we left this car covered in blood, smashed windows. And then the next day, the guy called her and said, hey, I thought you guys were going to use my car.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. So somebody woke to to what they're going to think is probably still to this day, they probably call it the Tylertown Massacre. We don't know what happened that night. It was a dark, spooky night in October, And I'm like, how did nobody hear the screaming? And like, we had a generator going, we had lights. And certainly, we were using it as if we owned it. I was thinking, my God, what if the sheriff or somebody would have come into, because we had no paperwork, we had nothing, we didn't get any releases, we just assumed.
Guerrilla filmmaking at its best.
Yeah,
That's awesome.